episode of Chin-Quee Chats, the bite-sized podcast where we talk movies, sports, and everything in between. I'm your host, Matthew Chin-Quee, and this week I am joined by a very special guest, writer, director, actor, comic book extraordinaire, king of geeks, Kevin Smith. Nah, I'm just kidding. I actually don't know Kevin Smith. I wish I had Kevin Smith on. But this is an episode that is dedicated to his works, and more importantly, or perhaps more close to my heart, the View Askewniverse is what it's called. His own cinematic universe. The cinematic universe that started cinematic universes. The very diverse set of films that are set in the same universe that Kevin Smith had put out early in his career and has come back and revisited from time to time. And I wanted to talk about Kevin Smith just because I think that these set of films are one of the most underrated set of films and one of the most underrated cinematic universe in a world that's almost dominated by cinematic universes. It's a film landscape that's almost dominated by cinematic universes. Kevin Smith stands out as one of the most unique and one of the most and one of the first franchises, well, quote unquote franchises, to play with the idea of a bunch of separate films existing in the same universe. So without any further ado, let's get started on this cinema chat. So before I really dove into a real big breakdown of Kevin Smith's films and the films in the View Askewniverse, and then that's really what I want to focus on. I don't want to focus on his other films, like his newest horror trilogy that people are really not liking, or the various one-offs like Zack and Miri Make a Porno or Red State. I really just want to focus on the Jay and Silent Bob films, the films that feature Jay and Silent Bob. But before I get into any of that, before I break down any of that, I really just wanted to go over how I came to love Kevin Smith and how I came to love his films and his writing and his acting and the things that he builds within this own little universe that he just somehow created as an indie director. So I actually hadn't seen a single Kevin Smith film. I had barely even heard of the guy prior to February 2016, February of last year. And just being around and just being surrounded by all this nerd culture and the cinematic world that I like to immerse myself in. Yes, I had heard of Kevin Smith, and I knew that he was a big figure, not only in the comic world because he read he wrote some comics, specifically some Green Arrow comics. I think it was Green Arrow comics. Again, no fact checker. I don't fact check my own things because I'm lazy, and but I think it was Green Arrow, and I'm pretty sure I even read some of his issues. And Green Arrow is my favorite superhero, or comic superhero. I guess he's not really a superhero. I guess that's a debate for another time. But Kevin Smith, yes, he did write Green Arrow comic to my knowledge, so he is a comic book writer. He is a guy who's really well known and really well respected in the film community as being kind of an indie filmmaker that really kind of made it, and everybody knows his name now, and he's almost the king of the nerds. He has his own podcast, where the Fat Man at Batman, where he brings on all these celebrity guests, and he breaks down the various comic book stuff and breaks down just the various news in the film world. He's very, very much a fan, just like the rest of us. But he's also a fan who knows people and who makes great movies. But I think it was by chance that last year I had decided, you know what, I'm going to watch this little movie called Clerks, and I'm going to watch this movie that everybody seems to have been talking about, and everyone says, oh, if you love indie films and if you love witty dialogue about in a setting where nothing actually really happens, but it's just witty dialogue with great characters, then you're gonna love this movie. So I found it and I put it on, and then I fell in love with the film. So I was like, well, what's the next film in Kevin Smith's lineup? I want to watch that one. So I popped in Mallrats, And then I loved that one. And I watched Chasing Amy, and then I watched Dogma. Then I watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and then I watched Clerks 2, and then all of a sudden, I'm out of films. I'm like, holy shit, I love Kevin Smith. All of a sudden, I was a Kevin Smith fanboy, and I love these films. So you know what I did? I went back and I watched them again, and I was watching these films all in a 1 week period, and I couldn't stop watching the films again. I couldn't stop going back on YouTube and finding the clips and just listening and watching these scenes over and over. So that's basically how and when I became a Kevin Smith fan. In just a short span of a week or two, I watched all the films in the View Askewniverse, and I absolutely love them. So, starting from the beginning, Clerks, 1994. Because I only have 20-minute segments for my cinema channel, I'm gonna have to break these down pretty quickly. But Clerks, I think that the production of Clerks is one of the most interesting aspects of the film, and that's not a slight to the film because the film is incredibly interesting. But the fact that Kevin Smith was working on this film, he was basically like you or me. He wasn't anybody big. He somehow scripted together 10,000 grand or 10,000 grand. That's a lot of money. $10,000, 10K, and he shot this film in black and white with two relatively unknown actors and cast himself. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure it's two unknown actors, period. Cast himself in a minor supporting role, and wrote this outstanding script where it's basically these two guys are sitting, they're sitting in a convenience store as clerks, as the title says, and they're just shooting the shit. They're just talking. There is a story. There is a plot line that helps bind the story together about how Dante and Randall weren't actually supposed to be there today, and then there's the whole fiasco with Dante's girlfriend or Dante's ex-girlfriend. But anyways, I think the brilliance of that film is not only the production and how Kevin Smith managed to make such a great film with $10,000 that just blew up after and really put him on the map, but the dialogue that is the entire film. The dialogue and the characters of the entire film. If Kevin Smith didn't write such witty dialogue, such witty banter, for example, the stuff about the Death Star, that is probably one of my favorite scenes in the film, where Dante and Randall are kind of having this debate about Death Star workers and the contractors on the second Death Star, and whether the rebels were bad for blowing them up. And it's just that type of stuff where, as someone who is immersed into this nerd culture and immersed into the film culture, and really identifies with these two characters and the way they're talking, it's like seeing yourself and your friends up on screen, and Kevin Smith really captured that really well. And so without that dialogue, you don't have the rest of the films. You don't have Kevin Smith's career, I don't think. Clerks it's a brilliant film, and that really put him on the map. So what does he do after that? He goes and makes Mallrats, which I guess, I'm not sure, obviously I wasn't alive then, or I guess not obviously, I wasn't alive then. It was made in 1995, I was born in 96, but he makes the sequel with totally different characters, but also has Jay and Silent Bob pop up in here. And this one has a little bit more of a story. This one isn't basically a one-room drama, if you could call Clerks a drama, but Mallrats it's also a love story, and a lot of Kevin Smith's films they do have a romantic through line. Well, Mallrats and Chasing Amy, the two next ones, are probably the ones that really focus most on romantic aspects. But so if you haven't seen Mallrats, it's basically follows Brody and T.S. Quint, who are both dumped by their girlfriends, and then it's their attempts to get them back through various shenanigans in the mall. And Brody is played by Jason Lee, while T.S. Quint is played by some other dude whose name is absolutely escaping me right now. I can't remember, but Ben Affleck shows up in the film. Stan Lee makes a cameo, and while I don't think that Mallrats is as clever as Clerks with its dialogue, it uses it does still use Kevin Smith's signature writing, as well as some visual gags in this film. And this film is definitely a lot sillier than Clerks was, whereas Clerks was a little bit more serious. Like, you still have Jay and Silent Bob as characters who are very Kevin Smithy comedy. I don't want to say it's slapstick, because I'm personally not a fan of slapstick comedy, but and I am a fan of Kevin Smith's comedy, but it is slapstick in a way that is so ridiculous and so over the top that it really is hit or miss with some people. I know that if I showed Kevin Smith's films to my parents or some other people who don't have the same sense of humor as I do, that they probably wouldn't find it funny. And in that aspect, Kevin Smith's films are hit or miss. And this really begins to shine in Mallrats. You saw a little bit of it in Clerks with Jay and Silent Bob, like I said, but Mallrats is where he really started to show almost his true colors as a more comedic director, and not just someone who can write really compelling dialogue and write really great characters. So Mallrats is significantly more of a comedy than Clerks is, and and it's significantly more of a romantic film. It really expanded. Mallrats really expanded and showed that Kevin Smith wasn't just this indie director. This is more a comedy. This is more a romantic comedy. So Mallrats, although I don't think it's as strong as Clerks, I still really enjoy it. But then it comes to Chasing Amy, which is a full-on romance, and it's romance that breaks tropes. It is about two comic book writers played by Ben Affleck and Jason Lee, who fall in love, or Ben Affleck's character, Holden McNeil, falls in love with a lesbian. And the concept of it is so ridiculous. Two comic book writers and a lesbian hook up, and then they also have a black friend who, for the media, is supposed to be a black supremacist, but he's actually just basically a gay walking Tom, or a gay walking Tom, a gay Uncle Tom, who's just playing that up for the for the media and to sell his own comic books. But Chasing Amy is this complicated love story that really, it deals with issues of homosexuality and deals with breaking up with relationships, or how relationships change between best friends and girlfriends and boyfriends, and even with that Joe character of the joke Malcolm X character, whose name is also escaping me. I should really start doing some research before these episodes. But what Chasing Amy does is it really breaks a lot of tropes while also still following them, and still having still having Kevin Smith's humor, mixing it in with a little bit more of his serious dialogue. There's a really, really great scene, and it's where the film's title comes from, where Jay and Silent Bob, again, they're in this film because Jay and Silent Bob are kind of the Nick Fury, if you will, of this universe. They tie the universe together, where Silent Bob, he finally speaks up, and he does speak in the other films, but he does a big speech in this one, probably the most dialogue he has in any of these films, where Holden has just dumped Alyssa, the lesbian that he was in love with, and he's starting to regret. He's starting to think this is the wrong choice. And Silent Bob pipes up and tells him the story about this girl named Amy, and how he loved her and then he lost her, and how he'll always be chasing Amy. And that speech, for a film and a director and a writer and a character that have been really comedic in the past, and even in Clerks, it maybe wasn't so comedic, but it wasn't exactly dramatic like this either. This really showed that Kevin Smith can write some great drama, and can write some really hard-hitting stuff that hits you to your soul. And that's what Chasing Amy does. I think Chasing Amy is the most, I don't want to say wholesome, but it is one that will hit you to the soul and really affect you and really make you emotional, as opposed to the other films, which are a little bit more zany. Zany is probably the best word to describe Kevin Smith's comedy. But Chasing Amy is probably one that's really going to hit you the hardest, and for lack of a better word, the feels. So next after Chasing Amy is Dogma, and this one is my personal favorite. Now, again, I'm going to have to go back and kind of explain myself. I am a Catholic, and I am a practicing Catholic, so I go to church and I pray and whatnot. And this is a film that really, for better or for worse, it attacks the Catholic Church. And I know that there were various factions who hated Dogma just because of the very nature of the film, of the nature of the film really criticizing the Catholic Church and really criticizing religion as a whole. And going into this film, I was a little bit wary just because I wasn't sure if Kevin Smith was just going to go full. Now, I don't want to come off as crass or brash or anybody, but there are certain groups of atheists who just attack religion, and I thought that maybe that's what this film was. But I read up and I found out that Kevin Smith was a devout Catholic at a certain time, and he's still spiritual, but he had a little falling out with the church and started to believe less and less with the organization as a whole, and that's where this film came from. And he does something at the beginning of this film that really just caught me off guard, and really just not only caught me off guard, but really brought my guard down for this film. But his disclaimer is at the very beginning, saying how he doesn't intend this to be offensive in any way. It's really just a comedy, and giving this whole spiel about a warning, and then at the very end takes it all back. He's like, but if you really cared, or if you're really this irrational, this warning is gonna do anything for you, so you better not watch this movie anyways, or something like that. And it's really funny from the very beginning. You can tell that this is gonna be a comedic critique of the Catholic Church. And so basically, what this film is about, it's about two fallen angels, Bartleby and Loki, who are again played by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And these guys are really good friends with Kevin Smith, and I'll probably tackle this another time on another episode. And there's rumors that Kevin Smith helped the duo write Good Will Hunting, the film that they won the writing Oscar for way back when. What also really put them on the map, but Ben Affleck really has Kevin Smith to thank for his career, in my opinion. He wouldn't be Batman without the fat man on Batman. But anyways, Dogma is about these two fallen angels who have been banned from heaven and are trying to find a way back to heaven, and they try to take advantage of a fallacy in the church. That states that if you go through the archway in the church, you'll be absolved of all your sins, be able to go to heaven. But because God banned them from heaven forever, and God's word is infallible, that would create a paradox that would just rip apart the universe. So God sends the late great Alan Rickman as Metatron to Jesus' last scion, who is Jesus' last relative, who's played by the vastly underrated, and I can't believe, I don't know where she went, Linda Fiorentino, who is perhaps best known for being in Men in Black 1 and, well, Dogma. And she puts on a great performance where she is an atheist. No, she's a Catholic, but not a non-practicing Catholic, one who, like Kevin Smith, has really had a falling out with the church. And I do think that her character really comes to represent Kevin Smith in the film. But as she begins to come to grips with her faith and comes to grips with the fact that she is related to Jesus. And anyways, through a wacky series of events, everything, obviously, spoilers, it does fix itself, but the film it's really funny, but also has a really great message, and it really hits me hard as someone who is pretty religious, especially religious and a member of the church, that Kevin Smith is critiquing in this film. And it's not necessarily attacking. I don't think it's a full-on, hey, you're doing this really badly, you should stop this. It's more of a friendly critique, saying, you know, you guys do make mistakes here and there. You guys aren't perfect, and I'm going to make fun of this a little bit, like any almost stand-up comedian would do. But that's why Dogma is my favorite, just because I like laughing at some of the absurdness of some of the rules and of the way that Kevin Smith presents it in such a comedic way and such a dramatic way. And also, Dogma also has the greatest representation of God in a film ever, played by Alanis Morissette. I'm not going to say any more because that will spoil the film, but it's amazing. You should just watch it. Anyways, I gotta go through these last ones quick. Jay and Silent Bob, it's almost the Avengers of this film, because it's really a culmination of all the other of all the other films in the View Askewniverse, and it's purely a Jay and Silent Bob movie, whereas the other films were films with Jay and Silent Bob in them, and this one features a lot of cameos, such as not Holden, his friend Banky, and it has characters from Mallrats, and it has Alyssa from Chasing Amy, and it has a bunch of other cameos. And basically the film is Jay and Silent Bob going on a road trip to stop a movie that's made about them. And this is a really wacky, over the top comedy, but it does, like all Kevin Smith films, have some great moments, especially one moment that I never cease to bring up and I never stop remembering, just because of how ridiculously on point it was. How many years before the big internet movie forums came up, but there is one scene, you should search it up. It's called just search up Jay and Silent Bob Explain the Internet, where Holden McNeil, Ben Affleck's character from Chasing Amy, explains to Jay and Silent Bob what the internet is and what movie forums are, and he dead on, like to the T, explains some movie fans on the internet and how they are how they critique stuff when really they're really just obsessed and say they hate it. And it is just it's absolutely hilarious, just because of how eerily accurate it is. 10 years, 20 years, not 20 years, we're not even there 20 years yet, but 10 years before the internet's movie boards really hit. But if anything, just see Jay and Silent Bob just for that scene. The humor maybe is hit and miss because it's so stupid. Some of it's so ridiculous. Like they're rescuing an orangutan, and they hold hands with the orangutan for half the film. Like it's ridiculous. But if anything, see a Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back for that scene alone. But finally, we're at the last one. I'm running out of time on my cinema chat segment, so I gotta make this quick. Clerks 2. It's basically, it's a sequel to Clerks. It's everything that Clerks was and kind of up the game a little bit. This one is in color. Surprise, surprise, he has more money. This one has Rosario Dawson before she was really that big. It has a big dance number. It has the same witty dialogue. It has a great scene where they debate Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars. Star Wars all the way. Sorry, Lord of the Rings, I do like you, but Star Wars all the way. But Clerks 2, it's a really proper sequel to Clerks, and kind of fits into the whole universe, but it did come out 5 years after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, so it is a little bit separated from the other films. And that is the entire View Askewniverse. I don't think there definitely isn't, in my opinion, a bad movie in all these, and according to Rotten Tomatoes, there really isn't either, except Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But if you liked his humor in the other ones, you'll like Jay and Silent Bob for what it is. But that is basically my really quick breakdown of the View Askewniverse. Maybe I'll do a bigger breakdown. Maybe I'll actually have Kevin Smith on one day and really just sit down and pick his brain about why he decided to do these films and the thought process and the story developments and some of the other things that he would like to do in the future. Like he did just announce that he is going to reboot Jay and Silent Bob. So fingers crossed that's going to be good and that doesn't reboot the entire universe, because I really don't want that. But anyways, that concludes my Cinema Chat segment. We'll be right back for free chat, where I'm going to talk about the NBA Finals. Alright, free chat time. I want to talk about the NBA Finals, and for a lot of people, this is a really touchy subject. For a lot of people in the sports world, for other people, maybe it's just like, it's just basketball, or it's just sports. But a lot of people are really passionate about sports. This is a really controversial NBA Final, mostly because this is the very first three-peat NBA Final matchup in the history of the NBA. It also has the 12-0 Warriors. It has the KD. It has LeBron, who's really chasing that title of the greatest of all time. He's really trying to surpass Jordan. And in my opinion, not really doing such a great job for him. And I am a supporter of LeBron, but the NBA Finals, like, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think it sucks. I think these finals they've just been boring. And granted, I am recording this right before Game 3, and last year Cavs were down 0-2, and it did seem like it was gonna be a boring series, and they did come back in a thrilling Game 7 win. But it's been garbage this year, and it really upsets me, just because, for those who don't know me, I'm a Raptors homer. I'm a homer at heart. I'm a Raptors fan, and I will always support them, and I will always be biased. I will always be biased for them. I'm sorry. I will try to keep my bias out, but I'm always gonna come back and think, hey, how does this relate to the Raptors, or how does this affect the Raptors at all? But that it probably also explains some of my gaps in NBA history, because I've been so focused on the Raptors, and I haven't really explored the NBA over the past few years. I have been doing my research and looking more into the NBA, but if it didn't involve the Raptors, I didn't care for the most part. But getting back to the NBA Finals, anyways, I think that it's just been a boring, lopsided, all Warriors finals, and I know that a lot of the casual fans will look at it and be like, but the Warriors are a super team, and they have Curry, and he's so good. No, now they have Durant, and oh my gosh, look at how they're blowing the Cavs out. Oh yes, I can't believe this is so cool. I love bandwagoning to the Warriors. Oh my gosh, and look at the ratings are the highest in NBA Finals have been ever. But to someone who has loved the game of basketball his entire life and loved the NBA and loved watching it, I could not be more disappointed with the NBA Finals. I have been very well spoken about how I hated KD's move to the Warriors. I think it's just an absolutely garbage move for him to do. Disrespectful to himself, disrespectful to the league, disrespectful to the teammates, disrespectful to the game of basketball. If you're an MVP, a former MVP, if you're one of the best players in the league, you don't, after you just got beaten by a team, after blowing a 3-1 lead, you don't go to the team that beat you, to a team that made it to the NBA Finals, to a team that was already a super team, and join them just because you can't beat them. I'm sorry, but I mean, he's gigantic, but I'm pretty sure I would try, probably, to have the courage to say this to his face, because I'm going to call it how it is. It's a bitch move. I'm going to call a spade. It's a bitch move, and I instantly lost respect for Kevin Durant before that, and by all accounts, he was a great guy, and I'm sure he's a great guy, but for basketball reasons, I lost all respect for him, because he has just made the finals. It's boring. It's a chore to watch. You just see the Warriors, they're absolutely dominant, and yes, it is good basketball to see them play at an elite level, both on offense and defense, but it just makes the entire regular season irrelevant. It makes the entire playoffs irrelevant, the way they're dominating. And maybe I'm jinxing the Warriors right now. Fingers crossed. Maybe I don't like the Warriors, so fingers crossed I'm jinxing them. But it looks like they're just gonna steamroll them all the way to a ring, and I can't believe this is the way KD wants to win a ring. He wants to win it by almost cheating, and by almost breaking the NBA. Now, I know there are a lot of people who thought that the problems in the NBA aren't directly caused by KD, that they're a symptom of something bigger, such as the draft rules. But if we're talking about just the NBA Finals, this is KD's fault. And it's KD's fault that we have gotten such a boring finals, that it's KD's fault that we're not seeing more competitive series, or we're just seeing blowouts here, and we're just seeing LeBron, who is one of the best players of all time and the best player in the league, just absolutely getting dismantled because his team cannot defend a team that has that much firepower. The Warriors are just way too stacked with talent. Especially, they were way too stacked last year, but I was willing to let that go just because that was an organically grown team. The management, credits to them, put together a great team. They've come through with some luck, but they put together a great team. They didn't quote unquote cheat their way into it, having KD join them. But when KD joined them in the offseason, it broke it. It broke the team. If this was a video game, the developers would have nerfed the crap out of the Warriors already. When I'm playing 2K, I ban the Warriors at my house. Nobody is allowed to touch that damn team. And nobody was allowed to touch them before, but they sure as hell are not be allowed to play with Warriors, with KD now. That's just, they'd be unstoppable. But yeah, the NBA Finals, hopefully the Cavs can turn it around and make it a good series. Hopefully Kyrie and Kevin Love can step up and help LeBron, and LeBron doesn't choke. LeBron continues to play at the level that he was the past few games before, the past series before, versus the Celtics, Raptors, and the Pacers. Hopefully he can really step up to the plate and really solidify himself as one of the greatest of all time by beating this super team. But things are looking bleak, and things are looking boring as hell. So that's my very, very dystopian, the very, very distressed look at the NBA Finals. Hopefully something will change in the offseason. KD is a free agent, so maybe he'll go away, but that's my free chat. It's not really the happiest of free chats, but I did want to talk about the NBA Finals. Maybe next week I'll come back with some better news, but anyways, again, as per usual, I'm going over time a little bit, just a little bit. Probably after editing, I'll take some of the stuff will be removed, and we won't be too far above or past overtime. But if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Drop a comment below on the YouTube, or drop a comment below on the Libsyn website, or on the Google Play or the iTunes. Subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out all the links in the description. That's where you can find me, and I will chat with you guys next week.